10 Buddhist Stories to Calm the Mind. For centuries, the teachings of the Buddha and the wisdom of Zen masters have guided people toward inner peace. These timeless stories remind us of mindfulness, compassion, and understanding keys that unlock the stillness within, helping us release worries and see life with greater clarity. So take a deep breath. Let go of the noise in your head. Join me on this journey through stories filled with wisdom and peace. Allow them to flow into your heart like a gentle stream, easing your mind and bringing light into your soul. The story of the empty boat long ago. There was a man who loved nothing more than rowing his boat across a quiet river. To him, each trip on the water was a chance to clear his mind, enjoy solitude, and embrace the beauty of nature. One evening, as the sun dipped low and bathed the river in golden light, he set out for a peaceful ride. While savoring the silence, he suddenly noticed another boat drifting straight toward him. At first, he called out politely, cheerful, "Don't come too close." But the boat kept coming. His voice grew louder, filled with frustration. "Move aside, you're going to crash into me." The two boats collided. Angry and ready to lash out, he looked closer and realized the boat was empty. No one was inside. It was simply carried by the current. In that instant, his anger dissolved. He sat in silence, feeling both foolish and strangely relieved. The lesson. The empty boat reminds us that much of our suffering doesn't come from others, but from how we interpret events. When we recognize life's empty boats for what they are, we free ourselves from needless anger and pain. This story teaches us to release the ego. Stop taking things personally and flow with life more calmly and clearly. The Monk and the Tiger. Every day, the old monk would take long walks through the forest surrounding his small mountain monastery. He moved slowly, breathing in the scent of the trees, listening to the whispers of the wind, and feeling deeply connected to the teachings of the Buddha and the beauty of nature around him. One afternoon, as he followed a narrow trail along the cliffside, a terrifying roar shook the air. He froze. His heart raced. When he turned, a massive tiger burst through the trees, its golden eyes locked on him, its powerful body charging at full speed. Instinct took over. He ran. His robe fluttered wildly as he sprinted down the path, but the thunder of paws grew closer and closer. Just as despair was about to swallow him, he spotted a vine dangling from the edge of the cliff. Without hesitation, he grabbed hold and slid down, clinging to it with all his strength. But when he looked below, his heart sank. At the bottom of the cliff, another tiger was waiting, pacing back and forth with hungry eyes. One above, one below. He was trapped. Dangling between heaven and earth, caught between two dangers, the monk suddenly noticed something small, but radiant. Growing out of the rocky wall beside him was a single wild strawberry. Red and ripe, he smiled gently, reached out, plucked it, and placed it in his mouth. The taste was exquisite, sweet, fresh, perfect. In that moment, the tigers disappeared. The fear vanished. There was no past, no future, only the joy of the strawberry, the beauty of the present moment. The lesson. This story teaches us that even in life's most desperate situations, beauty still exists in the present. When we stop clinging to fear and uncertainty and truly taste the strawberry before us, we discover peace right where we are. The tale of the monk and the tiger leaves us with a profound reminder about mindfulness. Life often puts us in situations where we feel trapped, cornered, or overwhelmed, just like the monk caught between two hungry tigers. Yet even in those moments, there is always something small, something precious, that we can be grateful for. Instead of letting fear consume him, the monk chose to notice the single strawberry right in front of him. By fully tasting its sweetness, he found peace in the present moment, even with danger surrounding him. Our lives are filled with tigers. To deadlines, financial stress, broken relationships, or personal fears. But if we pause and open ourselves to the present, we can still savor life's simple joys, a smile from a loved one, the sound of rain, or even a calm breath. This story teaches us that happiness doesn't come from eliminating every problem, but from the way we choose to live in this very moment. The story of the two arrows. One day, the Buddha was sitting with his disciples in a serene forest clearing. The trees swayed gently in the breeze, and birdsong filled the air, creating an atmosphere of peace. As was often the case, he spoke of the nature of suffering and the path to liberation. On this day, however, a troubled disciple stepped forward and bowed deeply. "Master," he said, "I do not understand why we must suffer so much in this life. Pain seems to follow us everywhere. Why is this so, and how can we find peace amid so much suffering?" The Buddha looked at him with deep compassion. He could see not only this disciple's confusion, but also the same question lingering in the hearts of many. Gently, he began to explain. Imagine a man is struck by an arrow. The pain from that arrow is real and unavoidable. This is the first arrow. The disciple nodded, realizing that the first arrow symbolized life's inevitable struggles. Illness, aging, loss, and death, all of which no one can escape. But the Buddha continued, beyond that after being struck by the first arrow, the man is struck by a second one. This second arrow is not shot from outside. It is created by the mind itself. Anger, fear, resentment, and despair. That is the second arrow, and it is what multiplies our suffering. The disciple looked up, his eyes slowly, clearing as he began to understand. Much of human suffering does not come from life itself, but from the way our minds react to it. The Buddha paused, letting his words settle deeply into the hearts of his disciples. Then he continued with gentle clarity. You see, the first arrow cannot be avoided. Every human being will encounter pain. Illness, loss, disappointment, the hardships of life. That is part of existence. But the second arrow, the suffering created by our own minds, is optional. And far too often, we are the ones shooting it at ourselves. He explained that when pain strikes, instead of simply accepting it, we often react with anger, fear, blame, or resentment. These reactions don't ease the pain. They multiply it, deepening the wound. Looking around at his disciples, the Buddha said softly, when struck by the first arrow, recognize it for what it is and a natural part of being alive. But the second arrow, the one born from our thoughts, can be stopped. Through mindfulness, we can refuse to let it pierce us. One disciple stepped forward and asked, "Master, how can we avoid the second arrow? How do we keep the mind from adding more suffering?" The Buddha smiled. By practicing mindfulness. When pain arises, notice it without judgment. Accept that pain is part of life, but do not cling to it or resist it. Do not create stories that keep the wound open. If you watch with awareness, the second arrow will never strike. The disciple bowed, deeply gratitude shining in his eyes. He realized that while pain is inevitable, suffering is often self-inflicted. And by meeting life's challenges with awareness and acceptance, he could find peace, even in hardship. The lesson. The story of the two arrows teaches us the vital difference between pain and suffering. Pain, the first arrow, is part of being human, but suffering, the second arrow, is created in the mind. With mindfulness, we can learn to stop shooting ourselves with that second arrow and discover freedom in the present moment. The parable of the mustard seed. Long ago, there lived a young woman named Kisa Gotami. She was known for her kindness, her gentle heart, and her deep devotion to her family. But tragedy struck her life when her only child, her beloved little boy, fell gravely ill and passed away. Her world shattered. Kisa could not accept the reality of his death. Desperate, she clutched her son's lifeless body in her arms and wandered from house to house, begging through tears, "Please, someone help me. My child has died. Is there anyone who can bring him back?" But every door she knocked on brought only sorrowful shakes of the head. Some said gently, "There is nothing we can do." Others whispered, "Death comes to every home." But Kisa refused to listen. Her grief was too heavy, and her hope too stubborn to let go. One day, her path crossed with a wise elder. Seeing the young mother drowning in despair, he said softly, "To the Buddha, his compassion is boundless. Perhaps he can guide you." Like a spark of light in the darkness, hope returned to her heart. She carried her child to where the Buddha sat peacefully beneath a Bodhi tree, surrounded by disciples. Falling to her knees, she laid the small body before him and pleaded, "Master, please bring my son back to life. I cannot bear this pain." The Buddha gazed at her with deep compassion. He saw the intensity of her suffering, but also knew that she needed more than a miracle. She needed to awaken to a profound truth. After a moment of silence, he spoke gently, "I can help you, but first you must bring me a mustard seed." Her eyes lit up, her heart racing with sudden relief. "Yes, Master, I will bring it at once." But before she could leave, the Buddha added, "The seed must come from a household that has never known death." Kisa bowed quickly, hope burning bright once again. She hurried away, believing she had finally found the way to save her child. With hope burning inside her, Kisa hurried away, clutching her child tightly. At the first house, she knocked on the door and pleaded, "Please give me a mustard seed, but it must come from a household where no one has ever died." The woman at the door looked at her with sorrowful eyes and said softly, "I'm sorry, but my husband passed away last year." Kisa bowed her head, fighting back tears, and moved on. At the next home, she repeated her request. The reply came again, heavy with grief. "My mother died many years ago. From house to house she went, but every door opened to the same truth. Every family had known loss. Some spoke of fathers long gone, others of children taken too soon, or spouses who had departed forever. At first, Kisa clung desperately to the hope that somewhere there must be a home, untouched by death. But as the day wore on, her steps grew slower, and the truth grew clearer. Death visits every household. It is not her grief alone, but the grief of all humanity. When the sun finally dipped below the horizon, she returned to the Buddha, her arms still empty. Kneeling before him, her voice no longer frantic but calm, she said, "Master, I could not find even a single home that has never known death. Every family has lost someone dear. I now understand death is part of life, and none can escape it." The Buddha nodded gently, his eyes filled with compassion. "You have discovered a great truth. Death is inevitable. Suffering comes to all who cling to what must pass away. But when you accept life's impermanence, you will find peace." At that moment, Kisa realized her grief was not hers alone to carry. She saw that every being shares in the same fate. With this understanding, she gently laid her son's body to rest, burying him with dignity and love. And for the first time since her tragedy, she felt a quiet peace blossom in her heart. The lesson. The parable of the mustard seed reveals a timeless truth: death spares no one. Kisa Gotami's desperate search for a miracle led her instead to wisdom, that by accepting impermanence, we release the weight of grief and discover serenity in the present moment. Lesson from the mustard seed. Through her search for the mustard seed, Kisa Gotami awakened to a universal truth: death is a natural part of life, and no one is spared from it. Grief and loss are inevitable, but clinging to what must pass only multiplies our suffering. The Buddha's wisdom in this story reminds us that attachment to impermanence leads to pain. Everything, people, relationships, possessions, and experiences is temporary. By accepting this reality, we free ourselves from unnecessary sorrow and discover peace even in the face of loss. While mourning is natural, we find solace in realizing that grief is shared by all humanity. With wisdom and compassion, we can face both life and death with understanding, and in doing so, live more peacefully within the impermanence of all things. The Farmer and the Horse. Once upon a time, in a quiet little village, there lived a humble farmer. He was known among his neighbors for his steady work and calm spirit. His farm was simple, and his only helper was a single horse used for plowing the fields and carrying heavy loads. Though he had little, the farmer was content with his life. One morning, however, he awoke to find the stable empty. His only horse had run away. When the villagers heard the news, they rushed over to comfort him. "Oh, what terrible luck! Without your horse, how will you manage? This is such misfortune." But the farmer remained calm. He simply replied, "Maybe, maybe not." The neighbors were baffled. How could he be so indifferent to such bad luck? Shaking their heads, they left, convinced he was in denial about his loss. A few days later, something unexpected happened. The farmer and the horse. To everyone's surprise, the farmer's horse returned. But it didn't come back alone. It brought with it an entire herd of wild horses from the mountains. Overnight, the farmer went from owning one horse to many. The villagers rushed over this time, full of excitement. "What wonderful luck! Now you have so many horses. Truly, fortune smiles on you." But the farmer, with his usual calm smile, replied simply, "Maybe, maybe not." The neighbors were baffled. How could he be so indifferent? Surely this was a blessing. Yet he remained unmoved, as if neither thrilled nor impressed. A few days later, the farmer's son tried taming one of the wild horses, but the animal bucked violently, throwing him to the ground and breaking his leg. The injury was severe, leaving him unable to help with farm work for months. Again, the villagers came, this time with pity in their voices. "Such bad luck. Your son is injured, and now he cannot help you. This is truly unfortunate." The farmer stayed calm as always. "Maybe, maybe not." Now the villagers were completely confused. Whether good news or bad, he always responded the same way. They couldn't understand why he refused to react like everyone else. Weeks later, the country was plunged into war. Soldiers came to the village to draft all able-bodied young men into the army. Families wept as their sons were taken away, but the farmer's son with his broken leg was spared from the draft. He remained safely at home, while many others never returned. Only then did the villagers begin to understand the wisdom hidden in the farmer's simple words. Lesson from the Farmer and the Horse. When the farmer's son was spared from the war because of his broken leg, the villagers rushed to his home once again. "How fortunate you are! Because of his injury, your son was saved from battle." "What amazing luck!" The farmer only smiled calmly and replied, "Deba, maybe not." And therein lies the wisdom of the story. The tale of the farmer and the horse teaches us a profound truth about life. Events themselves are neither truly good nor bad. It is time that reveals their meaning. What seems like misfortune may later prove to be a blessing, and what appears to be good fortune may bring unexpected difficulties. The farmer's strength was his ability to remain detached. He didn't cling to joy, nor did he collapse into despair. He understood that life is always changing, and today's outcome could easily shift tomorrow. By refusing to judge events too quickly, he lived with balance and equanimity. This parable encourages us to accept life's twists and turns with patience and an open heart. When we stop labeling everything as good or bad, we discover a calm center within ourselves, a place of peace no matter what comes our way. The Buddha and the angry man. One day, while the Buddha was teaching his disciples in a tranquil forest, a man appeared with fury burning in his eyes. He had heard of the Buddha's wisdom and the influence he held over others. But instead of admiration, jealousy and resentment grew within him. Unable to contain his anger, he decided to confront the Buddha in front of everyone and humiliate him. He stormed forward, shouting, "You're nothing but a fraud. Who do you think you are? You pretend to be wise and enlightened, but you're only deceiving people." The Buddha, seated calmly beneath the shade of a Bodhi tree, remained unshaken, his face serene, his presence steady, as though the man's insults had not touched him at all. The man hurled insult after insult, his voice rising with fury. But the Buddha sat unmoved, calm as a still lake, untouched by the storm of words. His face showed no anger, no irritation, only quiet compassion. The man grew more enraged at the Buddha's silence. "How dare you sit there as if you're above everyone else? Do you think you're better than me? I will never respect someone like you." Yet no matter how loudly he shouted, the Buddha remained serene, his eyes filled not with judgment, but with understanding. Finally, drained of energy, the man stopped. He had expected an argument, a defense, some reaction, but the Buddha's peace left him confused and unsettled. Catching his breath, the man demanded, "Why won't you respond? Why don't you defend yourself? Don't you care what I think of you?" At last the Buddha spoke, his voice gentle and steady. "Tell me, if someone offers you a gift and you refuse to accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man frowned, puzzled, then replied after a pause, "If I don't accept it, it still belongs to the one who offered it." The Buddha nodded. "Exactly. And so it is with your anger. If you offer me your anger, and I do not accept it, then the anger remains yours." The man fell silent, stunned. He suddenly realized that his anger had harmed no one but himself. The Buddha continued, "When I refuse to accept your insults and your rage, they stay with you. You are the one who suffers from them, not. I choose peace, ashamed." The man lowered his head and said quietly, "Master, I see now. My anger has only burned me. Please teach me how to find peace as you do." The Buddha smiled warmly, his compassion shining through. Anger is like a burning coal. When you pick it up intending to throw it at another, it is your own hand that is burned first. Lesson from the Buddha and the angry man. The Buddha smiled gently and said, "Anger is like a burning coal. When you hold it in your hand, ready to throw it at another, it is your own skin that burns first." Then he added, "Let go of the coal. Let go of your anger. Instead, cultivate mindfulness, compassion, and understanding. Through these, you will find true peace." The man was humbled. Bowing his head, he thanked the Buddha, ashamed of his outburst. From that day forward, he resolved to follow the teachings, to release anger, and to seek peace within himself. The lesson. The story of the Buddha and the angry man reveals a profound truth about anger. When others try to wound us with words or actions, we still have the power to choose how we respond. If we accept the gift of their anger, it becomes our burden. But if we refuse to accept it, the anger remains with its giver. The Buddha's wisdom shows that insults and hatred only harm us if we let them in. By remaining calm and choosing compassion over retaliation, we protect our inner peace and free ourselves from the poison of resentment. In the end, anger is a choice. And when we choose peace instead, we empower ourselves to live with serenity, strength, and kindness. The monk and the teacup. In a quiet Zen monastery high in the mountains, there lived a revered monk, admired by his students for his wisdom, his calm presence, and his unshakable peace of mind. Each day, he would meditate, drink tea, and share teachings with his disciples. One afternoon, during their daily tea ceremony, the monk lifted a simple clay teacup in his hand. For a long moment, he gazed at it in silence. The cup was plain yet beautiful, earthy in color, perfectly rounded, elegant in its simplicity. His students, watching intently, grew curious. They wondered what lesson their master would reveal and waited eagerly for his words. The monk smiled softly and said, "This teacup is already broken." The students exchanged puzzled glances. They could clearly see the cup was whole, flawless, perfectly intact. Finally, one young disciple couldn't hold back his curiosity and asked, "Master, the teacup isn't broken. It's perfectly fine. Why do you say it is already broken?" Still smiling, the monk gently set the cup down before him. "In my mind, this teacup is already broken. Today it appears whole, but tomorrow or years from now, it will surely crack. It will shatter. That is its nature. By understanding that it is already broken, I can truly appreciate it while it still exists. I can enjoy drinking tea from it, knowing its life is temporary." The room fell silent as the weight of his words sank in. The monk continued, "Everything in life is like this teacup. No matter how beautiful or precious, all things are impermanent. We cannot cling to them forever. When we accept this, we are free to enjoy fully each moment, each relationship, each experience, without the fear of losing them." An older student asked, "Master, does that mean we should not love or care for things, since they will one day be gone?" The monk shook his head gently. "It means the opposite. When we embrace impermanence, we can love more deeply, because we do not hold out of fear, but out of true appreciation. We love things, people, and moments for what they are right now, as part of life's natural flow. And in this way, we carry a heart that is peaceful, unburdened by attachment." The students sat quietly reflecting. In that moment, they understood the teacup was a mirror for their own lives, their relationships, and everything they held dear. By seeing the teacup is already broken, they learned the secret to living fully, loving deeply, and letting go with grace. Lesson from the monk and the teacup. From that day on, every time the students sat down for tea, they remembered their master's words. This teacup is already broken. They held their cups with mindfulness, savoring each sip, each breath, each moment. They came to realize that life's beauty lies in its fleeting nature. And when change came, when a cup eventually cracked, or a loved one was lost, or a moment ended, they were no longer unprepared. Their hearts were open, ready to flow with the rhythm of existence. The lesson. The story of the monk and the teacup reveals the profound truth of impermanence and the freedom found in non-attachment. When the monk declared, "This cup is already broken," he was reminding us that all things in life are temporary. By embracing this reality, we release the pain of clinging. We learn to appreciate our relationships, our possessions, and our experiences without being imprisoned by the fear of losing them. Non-attachment is not indifference. It is the opposite. It allows us to love more deeply because we cherish things for what they are, yeah. Right now, it teaches us to hold them lightly, to enjoy them fully, and to let them go gracefully when the time comes. Ultimately, this story invites us to cultivate a peaceful heart by accepting impermanence and cherishing the present moment with gratitude and mindfulness. The Buddha and the robe in ancient India. During the time when the Buddha traveled from village to village, sharing his teachings, crowds often gathered wherever he went. Many were so moved by his wisdom and compassion that they left their homes to follow him as disciples. One day, while staying in a small village, a wealthy merchant heard that the Buddha was there. Filled with respect and admiration, he wished to present a gift worthy of the teacher. He prepared a robe of the finest silk, richly adorned with intricate patterns and craftsmanship. Carrying the robe with reverence, the merchant approached the Buddha, bowed deeply, and offered it before him in front of all who had gathered. The merchant bowed respectfully, holding the robe with both hands, and said, "Lord Buddha, I offer you this robe as a token of gratitude for your teachings." The Buddha looked at the shining silk, then back at the merchant, his face serene and kind. He saw the man's sincerity, but also knew that such luxury had no place in a monk's life. Smiling gently, he said, "Thank you for your generosity, but this robe is far too extravagant for me. As a simple monk, I am content with the plain robe I already wear." The merchant was surprised and protested, "But Lord Buddha, I only wish to give you the very best. Surely you deserve it." Still smiling, the Buddha replied, "If you truly wish to honor me, there is a greater way. Take this robe and offer it to someone who is truly in need. Someone who has no proper clothing at all. That act will bring far more merit and joy than giving it to me." The merchant paused, then slowly nodded. He understood. Later, as he walked through the village, he saw a poor man shivering in the cold, dressed in little more than rags. Without hesitation, he placed the luxurious robe around the man's shoulders. The poor man wept with joy, overwhelmed with gratitude. The next day, the merchant returned to the Buddha and shared what he had done. The Buddha nodded approvingly. "You have done well. True generosity is not in giving treasures to those who already have enough, but in offering to those who are in genuine need. By sharing your wealth with the less fortunate, you bring compassion and joy into the world." At that moment, the merchant felt a warmth in his heart he had never known before. He realized that the Buddha's teaching on generosity was not about the value of the gift, but the intention behind it: compassion, empathy, and the joy of easing another's suffering. Lesson from the Buddha and the robe. The story of the Buddha and the robe leaves us with a timeless teaching about the true nature of generosity and compassion. The worth of a gift is not measured by its luxury, but by the intention behind it and the relief it brings to those in need. The Buddha's refusal to accept the lavish silk robe reminds us that material possessions do not bring lasting happiness. Instead, he guided the merchant to offer it to someone who lacked even the basics, showing that true giving comes from empathy and the desire to ease another's suffering. This story calls on us to look beyond surface-level acts of charity and instead seek opportunities where our kindness can truly make a difference. A simple act of compassion, when directed to those who need it most, carries more meaning than the grandest gift given for show. In the end, the lesson is clear. Real compassion lies in recognizing the needs of others and responding with an open heart. When we give selflessly and thoughtfully, we create ripples of kindness that travel far beyond a single act, touching many lives along the way. The Buddha tames the elephant Nagiri. During the time when the Buddha was residing in Rajagaha, an ancient city in India, his teachings spread widely, drawing more and more followers to the path of peace and enlightenment. But with growing influence came jealousy. Among those who resented the Buddha was Devadatta, his cousin and former disciple. Consumed by envy and a thirst for power, Devadatta plotted to destroy the Buddha and claim authority for himself. One of his most dangerous schemes involved an elephant named Nagiri. Known for its wild nature and immense strength, Nagiri was feared by all and kept in the royal stables. Devadatta persuaded the elephant keepers to release the beast onto the streets, just as the Buddha would be passing by. The plan was cruelly simple. Let the enraged elephant trample the Buddha to death in front of his disciples and the townspeople. On the appointed day, as the Buddha walked calmly through the city, with his followers spreading his message of compassion, Nagiri was unleashed. Trumpeting fiercely, eyes blazing with fury, the mighty elephant charged straight toward him. When Devadatta's men opened the gates, Nagiri stormed out like thunder. The massive elephant charged through the streets, trumpeting fiercely, trampling everything in its path. Panic swept through the crowd as villagers fled in terror. Even the Buddha's disciples, trembling with fear, begged him, "Lord, please step aside. The elephant is too dangerous." But the Buddha remained composed, his face calm and radiant with peace. Instead of retreating, he continued walking forward directly toward the raging beast. As Nagiri thundered closer, eyes blazing with fury, the Buddha raised one hand in a gentle gesture of peace. From him radiated an overwhelming aura of loving kindness, a compassion that extended not only to his followers, but to the frightened, tormented elephant itself. Something extraordinary happened. As the elephant approached, its fury melted away. The fire in its eyes dimmed, and its massive body slowed. At last, it bowed its head before the Buddha. With tender compassion, the Buddha placed his hand upon Nagiri's head, speaking softly. The once violent elephant knelt at his feet, completely subdued and at peace. The people of Rajagaha were astonished. They had witnessed a miracle, a wild beast tamed not by chains or force, but by love alone. Even Devadatta's followers were shaken, questioning their loyalty, as they watched compassion triumph over hatred. Later, the Buddha explained true strength lies not in violence, but in compassion. Love has the power to calm anger, dissolve hatred, and transform even the most ferocious of beings. The lesson, the story of Nagiri teaches us that the greatest power is not found in force, but in a peaceful heart. When confronted with anger or aggression, responding with compassion can transform hostility into harmony. By choosing love over fear, we not only protect ourselves from hatred, but also create peace for the world around us. One day, the Buddha was teaching his disciples about the true purpose of his Dharma, a path meant to free, not to bind. To illustrate, he told a simple yet profound parable. He said, "Imagine a man standing on the bank of a wide, dangerous river. The currents are strong, the water's deep, and the far shore is safe and peaceful. But there is no bridge, no boat in sight. So the man gathers branches, limbs, and leaves, tying them together into a raft. With great effort, he paddles across and finally reaches the far shore in safety. Once there, he wonders, 'This raft has served me well. Should I now carry it on my back and continue my journey? Or should I leave it behind, knowing it has fulfilled its purpose?' The Buddha paused and asked his disciples, 'What do you think?' The monks replied, 'Master, of course he should leave the raft behind. It is no longer needed.' The Buddha smiled. 'Just so. My teachings are like that raft. They are meant to carry you across the river of suffering and ignorance. But once you have crossed, you must let them go. If you cling to them, they become a burden instead of a path to freedom. He explained further, wisdom lies not in holding on, but in knowing when to release. The Dharma is a tool, not an object of attachment. Use it well, and then move forward with a free and open heart. The lesson. The parable of the raft teaches that spiritual teachings are not ends in themselves, but tools to help us reach liberation. When we cling too tightly even to wisdom, it can become another chain. True freedom comes when we appreciate the guidance, use it, and then let go when its purpose is fulfilled. These stories are timeless jewels of wisdom, guiding us to calm the mind, open the heart, and live with clarity and compassion. They remind us that peace is not found by escaping life's challenges, but by walking through them with mindfulness and love. May you carry the peace of these teachings within you, finding stillness in the chaos and light in the darkest moments. Thank you for joining us. If you found value in these stories, we invite you to like, subscribe, and be part of our Buddhist Insight community, where ancient wisdom meets modern mindfulness. Together, let us continue to discover stories that soothe the mind, calm the heart, and bring light to everyday life.